This deep dive takes us into a really, really tough case.
Yeah.
The disappearance and death of 20-month-old Quinton Simon
Right.
in Savannah, Georgia, back in October 2022.
Uh-huh.
You might remember this one from the headlines.
Sure.
But with the information you've provided us,
Yeah.
we're going to go beyond the news cycle.
Okay.
And really try to understand how the seemingly simple missing child case
Right.
became something much darker.
What's particularly tragic here
Yeah.
is how quickly those initial assumptions unraveled.
Yeah.
We're going to dissect the timeline,
Okay.
examine the evidence, and try to make sense of the choices made.
It all started on October 5th, 2022.
Okay.
Quinton was reported missing from his playpen.
Uh-huh.
His mother, Leilani Simon, called 911,
Right.
and the front door of their home was found open.
Oh, wow.
So initially, it may have seemed like a possible kidnapping.
Yeah, a terrifying scenario for any parent.
Absolutely.
But almost from the get-go, cracks started appearing in Leilani's story. And those inconsistencies would become central to the investigation.
For example, she initially told investigators she went to bed around midnight after having a wisdom tooth removed. But then she claimed she left the house at 1 a.m. to get pain medication from a former coworker nicknamed Misty.
And that's where we see the first major discrepancy.
Okay.
Investigators located Misty,
Right.
whose real name is Melissa Bray,
Gotcha.
and she revealed she hadn't seen Leilani in months.
Wow.
It cast immediate doubt on Leilani's account.
Okay, so we have a missing child,
Right.
a mother whose story doesn't quite add up,
Yeah.
and this late-night trip that now seems suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
What other details started to emerge?
Well, GPS data showed Leilani was at a Chevron gas station
Okay.
around the time she claimed to be getting those pain meds. Later, it came out that she was allegedly meeting her drug dealer.
Oh, wow.
Then there's the HUM's ADT security system. Records show the front door didn't open until 9:22 a.m. That's 8 minutes after she called her fiancé, Danny,
Oh, wow.
to report Quinton missing,
Right.
directly contradicting her initial story.
So those inconsistencies become pretty significant.
Yeah.
And then there were the text messages found on Leilani's phone, right?
Yes, and those texts painted a troubling picture of her personal life. They revealed evidence of drug use,
Okay.
the relationship with her dealer named Craig,
Right.
and messages suggesting a high degree of emotional instability.
Oh, wow.
The narrative was shifting away from a simple missing child case.
At this point, investigators are piecing together a very different scenario.
Right.
What were their next steps?
After 7 days, the investigation took a heartbreaking turn.
Oh, no.
Authorities announced they believed Quinton was no longer alive.
Wow.
Leilani became the prime suspect,
Okay.
and the search moved to the landfill where trash from her neighborhood was taken.
The landfill.
Yeah.
That must have been an incredibly daunting task.
It was a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And think about it. Over 100 personnel spent weeks sifting through tons of garbage.
Oh, my gosh.
Tragically, on November 18th, 2022, their fears were confirmed.
Really?
They found the remains of a toddler in a partially torn trash bag.
Wow.
Later confirmed to be Quinton through forensic testing.
Oh, gosh.
This discovery dramatically changed the course of the investigation.
This is where the case takes a truly grim turn.
Yeah.
How did Leilani react when faced with this discovery?
3 days after the discovery of Quinton's remains,
Right.
Leilani was arrested and charged with malice murder,
Wow.
concealing a death, false reports, and providing false statements,
Jeez.
among other charges.
Malice murder.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
In simple terms,
Yeah.
malice murder means the killing was intentional and premeditated
Okay.
with an abandoned and malignant heart.
Right.
It carries a very serious penalty in the state of Georgia.
So what was her reaction when investigators questioned her? Did she confess?
Initially, she attempted to deflect blame, pointing fingers at others,
Okay.
including her fiancé, Danny.
Right.
But her accounts were inconsistent and ultimately didn't hold up.
Wow.
Eventually, she confessed to what happened,
Okay.
but claimed her drug use impaired her memory, and she couldn't recall the specifics of harming Quinton.
Blaming drug use and memory loss.
Right.
That's something we often see in cases like this, isn't it?
It's a common defense mechanism.
Yeah.
When faced with the enormity of such actions,
Right.
individuals may try to distance themselves from the reality of their choices,
Yeah.
seeking to mitigate their culpability.
So the case proceeded to trial.
Right.
What was the prosecution's strategy?
The prosecution focused on a meticulous presentation of the facts,
Okay.
meticulously laying out the timeline
Right.
and highlighting the inconsistencies in Leilani's various statements.
Gotcha.
Assistant District Attorney Tim Dean
Yeah.
presented all the evidence in a clear and concise manner,
Okay.
striving to build an airtight case.
What were some of the most compelling pieces of evidence presented during the trial?
Those inconsistent statements about the night Quinton disappeared were key, of course.
Oh, okay.
You'll recall Melissa Bray's testimony,
Yeah.
confirming she hadn't seen Leilani in months,
Right.
completely debunking her alibi.
Wow.
Then there was the heartbreaking testimony
Yeah.
from Michelle Marcia,
Okay.
Quinton's babysitter.
What did Michelle Marcia have to say?
Her testimony provided a glimpse
Yeah.
into Quinton's life outside of his home.
Okay.
She spoke about Leilani's apparent favoritism
Right.
towards her older son, Zane, and the concerning neglect Quinton experienced.
That's just devastating to hear.
Yeah.
A young boy deprived of the love and care he deserved.
Right.
Was there any other evidence that stood out?
The physical evidence was also quite damning.
Okay.
There's this surveillance footage showing Leilani's car near the dumpster.
Wow.
And let's not forget those incriminating text messages detailing her drug use and infidelity.
It sounds like the prosecution had a very strong case.
Yes.
What was the jury's verdict?
After reviewing all the evidence, the jury found Leilani guilty
Wow.
on all 14 counts.
Wow, guilty on all charges.
Yeah.
What was the sentence?
Leilani was sentenced to life in prison,
Wow.
plus an additional 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
The sentencing hearing was understandably emotional.
Yeah.
Michelle Marcia's daughter
Right.
gave a poignant statement about the love and care
Okay.
Quinton received while in their care,
Right.
further highlighting the immense loss of a young life full of potential.
This case obviously had a profound impact on everyone involved.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the legal proceedings,
Right.
but ultimately it's about the tragic loss of a young life. What are your thoughts on the lasting effects of this case?
It's a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of neglect and abuse.
Right.
Quinton's story, while incredibly specific, also reflects a much larger, often hidden problem.
Okay.
Child abuse and neglect are often shrouded in secrecy, occurring behind closed doors.
Right.
This case compels us to consider how we can create a society that prioritizes the safety and well-being of all children.
That's a significant point.
Yeah.
How do we as a society address such a complex and often hidden issue? Where do we even begin? It feels like such a huge question, you know?
Yeah.
How do we protect children?
Right.
It can feel overwhelming to even think about.
I think a good starting point is education
Okay.
as a society.
Right.
We need to better understand the risk factors associated with abuse and neglect.
Right.
We need to be able to recognize the warning signs,
Gotcha.
even subtle changes in a child's behavior. And crucially, we need to know how to report our concerns.
So much of this comes down to being aware
Yeah.
of what's happening in our own communities.
Right.
Can't be afraid to act. Absolutely.
When something feels wrong.
And it doesn't always require a dramatic intervention.
Okay.
Sometimes just being a supportive presence in someone's life
Right.
can make a real difference.
Yeah.
Perhaps offering a listening ear,
Uh-huh.
connecting a struggling parent with resources,
Right.
or simply creating a safe space for a child to be heard.
Yeah.
Even small gestures can have a ripple effect.
It's that idea of creating a safety net.
Exactly.
Community where everyone feels connected and supported.
Yeah. We need to foster environments where children feel safe,
Right.
loved, and empowered.
Yeah.
It's a significant challenge,
Uh-huh.
but it's a goal worth striving for.
This deep dive into Quinton Simon's case has been incredibly difficult,
It has.
but also illuminating.
Uh-huh.
It's a stark reminder of the fragility of life
Right.
and the devastating consequences of neglect and abuse.
It also underscores the vital role
Yeah.
we all play in protecting children.
Right.
We can't turn away from these issues.
Wow. We must remain vigilant,
Yes.
be willing to speak up,
Right.
and actively create a world where every child has the opportunity to thrive.
And to our listener, we hope this conversation has prompted some reflection and perhaps even ignited a sense of responsibility.
Right.
Let's all strive to be more aware, more compassionate, and more proactive in safeguarding the well-being of children in our communities.
Because even one child lost
Right.
to these circumstances is one too many.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Of course.
We'll be back next time
Sounds good.
with another exploration of a topic that matters.